and integration tests and unit tests. And I think now we have just a more modern interpretation of that, to say that, yes, we have tests of varying granularities, and the more code a test covers, the fewer of that type of test we should have. And that's the modern interpretation of the test pyramid. And I think it's just so useful. I keep coming back to it again and again. I use it obviously I talk about PACT, the open source tool that I work on, quite a bit. And I just keep coming back in my talks to the test pyramid, because it really informs, I think, the way that we make decisions on what sort of tests we use and how many of each one, and what we should be, what testing tools we should be using at each of those layers. And it gives you a bit of guidance in that area, I think, and helps you keep that agility, keep that quality of test.
Do you find yourself doing that prior to even writing code, or is that generally something that you would do sort of midway? Or
well, I think it just kind of happens organically now. When I'm writing code, I will just instinctively write a lot of unit tests, because that's the way I write code these days. And then thinking up the levels, you start thinking, okay, well, what's the next layer of abstraction I should test this at? Or sometimes I'll start with the middle layer of abstraction first. Like, I write the feature test first, and that will help me drive out my design. And then I'll go down and start writing the unit test to help me design my classes. And I'll find that mine's not quite implemented my feature properly, so I'll go back to my feature test. And then, yeah, to be honest, I kind of just jump around a bit.
There's this great concept called alternation in learning. And it's actually exactly what you're doing. It's like diving into one area.
It's just not me being disorganized.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, I don't know, you could call it that. You could call it how your brain works. But, I do it a lot, where I go into something, I jump in, I get stuck, I take a step back, I jump in, I go somewhere else. And it all just, it's not a singular process. It's not a process that goes one after the other. It sort of all blends, and I go all over the place. And finally, after a lot of pain, there's an outcome, and often a lot of rewriting.
You do it by feel, I think, sometimes.
Sometimes it is. And I mean, you said you've been working in the industry, you're in development for 17 years. And I guess experience, that's all your sort of experience built up, whereas somebody who may be just starting into an industry doesn't necessarily have that ability to jump. They're not necessarily able to, or have the confidence even to be able to do that kind of work. But I think over the time, that's what the beauty of a senior experienced person brings to a team, is you have that, you can give that confidence to other people as well,
I think experience gives you the ability to know when to back out.
Nice.
I'm much better at failure these days.
I'm stealing that one for sure.
I know when to say, okay, this is not working, let's try something else.
Yeah.
And that's valuable.
Yeah. Give yourself a bit of space. I think a bit of permission to think about it and think it through. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so back to trade-offs.
Oh yes. I remember I was going to talk about how the pyramid relates to the trade-offs.
Yes.
So that at the top of our pyramid, I'm sorry for those not familiar with the testing pyramid. Just do a quick Google.
I'll chuck it in on the.
Put a pretty picture in somewhere.
Yeah.
At the top of the pyramid, we have these tests, which are super valuable because they tell us whether or not the real business value of our product is being delivered. But they're also really hard to debug when things go wrong, because you're up high. You can't see right into the code. You're not close to the code in these tests. They run really slowly. They can often be quite flaky.
Yeah.
When things go wrong, it's hard to tell when they go wrong. And right down the bottom of the testing pyramid, we have these tasks tests that give us really fast feedback. When something goes wrong, it's really easy to see where they went wrong, but they don't give us that confidence that everything's going to work together correctly. So those are the trade-offs. The testing pyramid is all about trade-offs, and then choosing which trade-offs you want for a particular test and how many of those type you want to give you the level of quality that you're after for your product.
Going back to those UI tests, and you touched on sort of they're important, and a lot of people dismiss them and want to move away from them. And I completely get it, because they are, I mean, I feel pain every time I think of an end-to-end test. I mean, yes. but the business have such a dependency nearly on them, right? Yeah. I mean, you know, they're not technical. They have no idea. This is the only way they can really feel confident about knowing that the system's going to hang together.
They give you that confidence, but there's high confidence and high cost.
Yes. Nice.
And that's the thing that we want to make. We want people to be questioning. Like, whenever there's a high cost associated with something, don't just blindly follow some rule. Think about it. Make a conscious decision about, do we need this? Do we not need this? How long do we need?
I used to have a heuristic about, you know, never do more than 10 end-to-end automation tests. It was just like completely irrational, you know. It's like, no more than 10, that's it. And the purpose was to kind of get people thinking like, oh, you know, and having those conversations. But and to be fair, I've kind of mellowed a little bit on so no double-digit end-to-end tests. I think that we want to move away from this. I think people are genuinely scared to do that. You know, there's a genuine fear, there's pressure from business. I think being able to explain things in terms of cost is going to help people and help business a lot make some decisions. I think they'd appreciate that, to be honest, if they understand that the cost, what they're asking for is huge.
Like, if any developer who's spent, or tester who's spent like 6 hours trying to debug flaky end-to-end UI tests, like surfacing the cost of that to a business, like that was 6 hours that they weren't working on a feature.
Nice. I'm going to steal that too.
Please do.
That's all we have for you this week, but it's by no means the end of the conversation. In the next episode, Beth and I continue discussing trade-offs, the test automation pyramid, more PACT, and learning and life during COVID. Join me.